Welcome to the Northeast Divide podcast. I'm your host, John Lane. I'm joined here by Anth. And as always, we're here to talk about the two biggest football clubs in the Northeast, Newcastle United and Sunderland. Another reminder, if you like the video that you've watched, please press the like button. Please rate us if you listen to us on your free apps, and just make any comments for any feedback that you've got. We've had some feedback over the last couple of weeks, and we'll always try and respond to it, whether it's positive or whether it's more constructive. So just make sure you let us know how you feel. We're also on social media, at Instagram and on X at Northeast Divide. You can find us there. So, Anth, we're at the end of what's felt like a bit of a slog of an end of a season for Sunderland. 16th place. Season's done now. What's kind of your overall thoughts, and what are you hoping comes kind of in the close season for Sunderland?
Well, end of season, end of me tether. Awful. Again, another goddamn awful performance on Saturday. Sheffield Wednesday fully deserved the win. Stayed up, obviously, and well done to them. But it was just terrible. And yeah, I mean, I've been looking at some accounts. They released the accounts Sunderland from last, I think it was July 2023. And there was some interesting figures in there with regards to finances, etc. But it was quite interesting what they said at the very end of it. And they said at the very end of it that the accounts state the club continue to invest in a strong core of talented players, and we believe this will provide the foundations for continued progression throughout the upcoming seasons that will culminate in our ultimate objective of returning to the Premier League. Well,
Wow, that's a big statement.
it's a massive statement. So that was very interesting to read. But when I look at what's happened, how we've petered out, and I look at how we performed under Mowbray at the start of the season, and obviously he's gone, so that's ancient history now, and I hope his health's improving. I look at the decline in how we've played and the performance levels of not just the young players, but some of the more sort of seasoned players in our squad, sort of around the mid-20s mark, I suppose. And I look at the list of players that have been released. I mean, Corey Evans, I was a bit surprised at that. Bradley Dack, no surprises there. Callum Styles is not going to be taken on permanently, I don't think, from Barnsley, even though he's very versatile. I don't think he's any different to what we've got in the squad at the moment, and he doesn't really add anything to it. He's performed okayish. But it was interesting to see Nathan Bishop being given a starting goal on Saturday. And does that mean that it's the death knell for Patterson? Will he be on his way? And all the rumours, obviously, your Clarks, your Ballards. Apparently, Ipswich are now interested in Ekwa and Ballard. So,
Can I just ask really quickly, was Patterson on the bench or not?
do you know what? I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
So, I mean, the only reason I ask this, right, is I think it's really easy to look at this stuff, isn't it, and like put two and two together and say, well, actually, that might mean he's away, and I
Yeah.
think he probably is one of your more talented players, so I can totally understand like that that kind of worry and that concern. But what I would say is that, as an example, and I don't know if you remember this from last season. So we played against Leicester at home. We drew 0-0. And then Nick Pope the following day went in to have surgery on a broken finger. So it may be that it's just that he's had an injury. No, he's on the bench, so I'm talking shit. But so he wouldn't have broken his finger. But no, it's an interesting one, that, I suppose, isn't it? It adds an extra dynamic. And yeah, you say, what is it? Ballard and Ekwa both being linked with Ipswich as well.
Allegedly so. That's the rumours. And, again, I mean, a lot of the supporters are adding the two Pennyworth and saying we should be doing this and we should be doing that, and this is who we should have in the squad for next season. I mean, it's not easy because some teams are still in amongst it with regards to playoffs, etc. So I just, the season, I started off full of hope, and again, I sound like a broken record here. We did overachieve the previous season, but we did it playing attractive football, and we battled, and we showed our worth in all areas of the pitch. And obviously the Diallo Ahmad thing keeps coming up. He's posted on Instagram on his story, I think it was today, over the last 24 hours, of a goal he scored for us, and he's put a love heart, and so that's going to keep resurfacing. And but we can't hang on to these pipe dreams, false hope, because I don't think he's going to come back. So we've got to be realistic. I think it's going to be same again for next season. There's rumours going around that we're interested in some young strikers and not a lot of experience again. But there's the season just ended, so I was expecting a little bit more this season on the back end of the previous season's success. Unfortunately, we didn't live up to it. But there's next season, isn't there?
Yeah, I'm staggered that they've made that statement in their accounts, that they've gone out and said our ultimate aim. Now, don't get me wrong, of course, ultimate aim of any championship club is to get to the Premier League. But in your accounts, when you're kind of coming out and you're saying this is what we're planning to do and what have you, and ultimately, let's be honest, I don't think there's been a lot of capital investment from the owner. It's been very much kind of making sure that the club can wipe its own nose.
Mhm.
I'm not against that as a football fan, and I know it's very easy for me to say that when the world's richest investment fund owns 80% of our football club, but they actually can't spend a lot of that money and invest it on the squad. But I think it's a general principle. It's good to have a principle where the club is self-sufficient. I think that's a positive thing, but how are you going to make the club more self-sufficient? Well, you're going to have to be able to trade players. You're going to have to be able to fill the ground. I think the deal we talked about last week with Fanatics, I think that's a really clever step by the club, because look, Fanatics as a company, and look, we're not sponsored by them. I just want to make that absolutely clear. There are other retail outlets available, but they've got vast experience in this market. They currently do. They've got the contract for the NFL in Europe, and they've also got the contract for WWE in the UK. Now, they're two massive merchandise markets, so these guys are really experienced in what they do. So the fact that Sunderland are kind of utilising that, Newcastle have gone a different way. Newcastle have gone, we're bringing all our retail operations in-house for the first time in 10, 15 years since Big Mike had offloaded it to Sports Direct and then took a store after that. So look, I think there are some sensible decisions that they're making. I think the move to Hummel is again really clever one, and it's funny, isn't it? Like, how sometimes how there's almost like a synchronization between Newcastle and Sunderland, because we're going to Adidas in the summer as well, which again is a well loved brand from from kind of yesteryear for us. So but those kind of moves are sensible moves if you want to kind of try and increase your revenue. But I think, to be honest, if you've got the likes of Bristol City putting 20 million a year, as Kieran Maguire told us a couple of months ago, then that's kind of the level of investment that you need. And is that something that Kirill What's-His-Face wants to do? I don't know. You know that better than me. But that's the question, isn't it, really? And if that's his ultimate aim, is to get you to the Premier League, they're going to have to spend some money to do that, and it's going to take more than one number 9, as I saw on one tweet, I think that was doing the rounds. There was a video of a woman talking about how they just need one striker, and you just need more than one striker. I think you need a couple of experienced heads, and and then kind of hope that you can kind of get through. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Sunderland, I suppose. Contrasting for Newcastle, so it was only a couple of months ago that there were some fans, including myself, saying, fuck the league, we'll go for the cup. We'll see how that does. We then drew Man City away in the cup, which then kind of changed our kind of scope on that. But we've hit a bit of form, and we're now probably favourites to finish 6th, which, considering the worst injury crisis I've ever seen in my lifetime as a Newcastle fan, and I mean, I remember some really bad times with injury during the Robson years. We're in a position where we are 3 games away from finishing 6th. We play Brighton on Saturday. We then play Man United a week tonight. And then we finish at Brentford. So we've got, as I say, if we can get 7 points from those 3 games, we will finish 6th as a minimum, which is a remarkable achievement for me. I think we've done an incredible job to do it. How long have you seen this coming forth from an outsider's point of view? Did you think it was going that way for Newcastle?
Do you know what? When I looked at your final run-in and some of the games, I mean, Brighton have flattered to deceive this season after the fantastic season they had previous. Burnley, I mean, 100 points in the Championship and storming that league doesn't guarantee you anything in the Premiership. That could have been a banana skin of a fixture, though. And to be fair, it was a barnstorming performance by us, and any fears were certainly put to bed. I couldn't believe the score. I mean, what was your score prediction again? Did you say, John? It was
2-1, I think I
going to
said.
be
I
a
think.
bit edgy, wasn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah, and
yeah, yeah.
it could have been. Turf Moor's not an easy place to go to, but a fantastic result for us. See us through gritted teeth, and I mean, I watched Manchester United against Crystal Palace the other night, and I tell you what, man, if I was a Manchester United supporter, I'd be bursting a blood vessel. I'd be coming out making up new expletives because that performance was just. I mean, and I've experienced some woeful Sunderland performances, but we haven't quite had the talent to back up the work rate. So you forgive them to a certain extent if they fall a bit short. Manchester United, some of the players they've got should be performing a hell of a lot better. And you were saying it's going to be towards the end of the season, Man U, who's going to sneak in. Based on recent results and recent performances, it's going to be yourselves, and it'll be fully deserved if you do. Manchester United were just absolutely dreadful the other night. Dreadful.
I think they've been really crap all season.
Oh,
And I've been saying this all year that they're shit. And I mean, I don't know if you're aware of this, Ant. We've never finished above them in the Premier League, and we haven't finished
ooh.
above them in the league for like something ridiculous, like 40 odd years, or something daft. The other interesting one though is Chelsea, right? Because Chelsea play, they play, I think, Fulham away, Forest away, and I can't remember what it was, but it's something. It's something like that. I think it's like that's it. They've got Forest away, Brighton away, then Bournemouth at home. So they don't play Fulham. I was lying. So I think like Chelsea are a team. They're probably going to get, like, if they don't get 9 points out of that, I think they'll get 7. Because they're just hitting a little bit of run of form at the right time. This is what you do this time of the season. So if they hit 61 points, that means we'd need 5 points. So a win and 2 draws would do it for us. Just about ahead of them. As long as one of those draws is against Manure, which I think it probably would be, then we'd be all right. But I think that's the thing. I think the thing we have to remember about with Man United, it's in their hands. So if Man United win out, they'll finish above us. Obviously, if we win out, we'll be fine. Chelsea, they could win all 3 of their games, and we could still finish ahead of them. So that's, I suppose, they're kind of, they can only concentrate on them, and that's like all these teams will, won't they? But no, I feel like our form has been really strong. I think we obviously had the turning point for us, I think, was that game against West Ham, where we were 3-1 down. We came back to win 4-3. And since then, we've just had a little bit about us, I think, and our form's improved. And then we smacked Spurs at home. We had a bit of a scare against Sheffield United in the first half, but we walked the second half. And Saturday is a complete performance that I've seen for a while from us. And Burnley were all right in the first 20 minutes. It wasn't that we were bad. Burnley played all right. They were decent. And then as soon as we got the first goal, that was it. Like, it was clear there was only going to be one winner. We got the second goal. As I keep saying, once Newcastle United goes 2 goals ahead under Eddie Howe, we don't lose. Never lost, and we've only drawn one of those games, which was against City at home last season. So look, we're in a really, really strong vein of form. And the Palace game from a few weeks ago, I think that was the anomaly of the results. That was the odd one. Whereas I think if you'd said, a couple of months ago, the odd one out was that away game at Villa, where we were really good, and then we were really sketchy, but our form's really improved. And I think they're up for it, and I think they want it. I think they can smell it. There's some fans saying that, potentially we could finish 5th. We're 4 points behind Spurs, but they've got to play Burnley and Sheffield United. So, they win those 2 games, we can't finish above them. Their other games, Man City, at Spurs. So I think I'd be very surprised if we don't finish 6th. I'd be disappointed if we don't finish sixth. I'd be pissed off if we finish sixth and Man United win the FA Cup, because then we'll be in the conference instead of the Europa League. But I do kind of think that's unlikely as well, because Man United have been shocking this year, absolutely shocking. We're going to move on. So, right. Did you see the tweet from William Storey the other day? Because this really knocked me.
Yeah, he's an absolute Burke, isn't he? Really.
That's very polite.
Oh man, because obviously he's made attempts to buy. Is it Redden?
Yes.
Sunderland, obviously, and Coventry, and failed in every one of those ventures, because obviously a bit of digging around's been done in the background. Maybe he's looking at his finances, or who's going to back him, or who's, and he's I don't know. He's become he's just a little bit. He's a little bit silly, isn't he? He's become a little bit of a figure of fun. So yeah, the beard doesn't help. He looks like he's part of a ZZ Top tribute band. So I just think, yeah, that comment was just, it was playground stuff. What are you hoping to achieve by doing that? It's not even banter either. It's just like
No.
load of arse in it.
So just
Yeah.
if anyone's not seen this on X or know who William Storey is, so for those who don't know who William Storey is, he's basically a guy who he owned an energy company called, I think it was Rich Energy. So that was kind of who he was involved with, or at least owned. And then I don't know if anyone remembers, but they sponsored an F1 team. And I'm not sure who the
Yes,
F1 team was, but basically the money never came, essentially.
Mhm.
So he'd said, "Oh yeah, we're doing this kind of thing." The money never landed. From there, it then just basically he's then tried buying some football clubs, but again, it just seems like the money's not there. So he tweets 3 days ago. He says, "I've had a lot of Newcastle fans query the factual stats on Sunderland's incredible support. People forget that Newcastle attendances collapsed to under 8,000 in the 70s. Fickle. Newcastle also hold the record for the lowest ever attendance in the Northeast for a top flight game. Hashtag SAFC." Now, I read that, right? And I couldn't help but quote tweet him. And what I said is, imagine trying to use a rivalry to appease yourself to a fan base that want you nowhere near their club as an owner. What a bell end, right? Now that's
Can't
my
argue with
feeling
that.
on it, right? No, and this and look,
Oh,
and
man.
I think the reason it upset me, and I say upset is quite a strong word. I mean, I haven't lost any sleep over it or anything, but it for me it's about trying to get people to jump onto a bandwagon with them almost, and think, well, how can I really get Sunderland fans on board? All right, I'll slag Newcastle off because they'll love that. And it's like there's far too many intelligent people in Sunderland, regardless what some people may think there are, to be fooled by that kind of approach.
Yeah.
People understand the football club, but they also understand a con man when they see one. You smelled Methven and Donald a mile off that they were chances. You knew that happened. And football fans do understand this with their clubs. And I think it probably took Mike Ashley to ridicule Kevin Keegan the way that he did for Newcastle fans to really wake up to the kind of, the mess that he was essentially as an owner. But fans understand chances when they see them, they get it. And I don't think anyone is going to read that tweet and go, "Oh, do you know what it is? He'd be a really good owner for our football club because he doesn't like Newcastle." It just baffled me that he's still trying to use Sunderland to make himself more relevant, to put himself in a position where, in a fantasy land, he thinks he might have a chance of acquiring the club or having an interest or whatever it might be, or trying to, rich energy across the front of the shirt or whatever it might be. And I just hope your owners, if there's anything like that happening, are nowhere near it. But yeah, that just stood out to me, and I just thought, what's going on with the world? What's happening?
It was
Just don't
utterly
get it.
bizarre, wasn't it? Utterly bizarre. And like you say, what was he hoping to achieve? To carry favour with Sunderland supporters who were unconvinced with him in the first instance. And like you say, a complete chancer. Yeah, I just think, everyone likes a bit of banter and, a bit of back and forth. But I just thought it was pretty woeful, to be fair. The bandwagon that you mentioned, it was a three-wheeler bandwagon and gathering no momentum whatsoever and petering out and just conking out by the side of the road. So best of luck to the fella, because some supporters have been quite vocal in saying that the club should be sold. I was like, right, okay, the model hasn't quite worked this season. Obviously, we're letting some senior players go. We're going to sell some. We're going to have to sell some players. We're going to sell some players. We have to learn to live with that for now, because that is the way it is. But I don't think getting a new owner is going to get us quick success or get us back to the Premier League any quicker. So be careful what you wish for.
And what's the alternative, Anth? That you overspend beyond your means and you end up in a position where you're in before, where the owner walks away and he writes off all the debt. And is another owner going to do that? Like, a lot of people have got a lot of bad things to say about Ellis Short, but in fairness to him, he took all that debt and walked away. Like, he didn't, he hasn't charged that back to the club, to my understanding anyway. He hasn't left you in that position. He's left a bit of a mess in terms of the way that the club was being run, and that's had to be fixed. But that's not every owner is going to do that. There will be other owners who, that debt will be against the club until they go, or what have you. And at some point, the club needs to wipe its nose, I suppose. And
exactly,
it's getting that balance and how you do that, and it's hard. But I think, look, there are well-run clubs out there, and we've talked about this before. When you look at kind of what Brighton have done, what Brentford have done, to an extent, what Luton have done, although they're probably coming down this year. But if you can get yourself a well-run club, Ipswich, I mean, look at what they've done, and the
amazing.
test will be, can they survive in the Premier League, and then can they consolidate, and can they stay there? And that's where I think what Brentford and Brighton have done is really impressive, because they've just tried to be smarter than everyone else and try a different way, and that's ultimately what Sunderland need to do. I don't think you're going to get promoted with kids, as I said last week, to quote Alan Hansen. But I think, a sprinkling of a bit of experience, you've got a chance. Have you seen who the new manager is at Blyth Spartans, Anth?
Nobby
Solano.
Is he going to play his trumpet? That's the big question, isn't it?
Yeah, someone asked in a WhatsApp group that I'm in, whether it'd been whether he'd arrived with a fanfare, and put the trumpet emoji in. So I thought that was very good. I just found this a really interesting story. I think there's a couple of other Geordies involved in football clubs. So Steve Watson is sure he's managing a lower league club at the moment. I think it's Rob Elliott currently, who used to be goalkeeper at Newcastle, who now manages Gateshead as well. So look, there is kind of ex Newcastle players in some of these jobs. I mean, what's your thoughts on this, Ant? Because do we think this has been done because they genuinely think Nobby Solano is going to be a really good coach from that level, or do we think there's an element of, and we're not a cynical podcast, but is there a bit here of this is going to be some good publicity and maybe this will bring some more punters in?
I think it could be the latter. It could be. I don't know what I don't know if is he managed before. I haven't really followed his career path since. Yeah.
So he was, I believe, he was assistant at the Peruvian national team.
All right.
So I mean, that's and that's got to be a decent level, hasn't it? I mean, you're in a World Cup qualifying group every year with Argentina and Brazil, so you're going to have to be half decent to qualify for tournaments, and I'm fairly sure they did. But I did find it interesting. I mean, he's in the area again, and I think he's I'm assuming he wants to kind of apply himself. But yeah, he's. What have we done? Yeah, so he has had some managerial jobs. None of them are jumping out at me as me looking and going, like, oh yeah, I know who they are. They're all quite small clubs. But no, I think it's an interesting one. I think I am a little bit cynical on this, and I think it probably is a bit of a publicity thing. He was interviewed for Sky the other day in 3.5 minutes, and he was then asked questions about Newcastle, rather than the new job that he's moved into. So But look, I mean, I wish him all the best. I wish the club all the best. Blyth Spartans are a great club. Synonymous with the FA Cup. So I'd love to see that. I also have to mention that I was bank holiday Monday. I went to Groundsel Park, which is based in High Heaton. For those who don't know, the home of Heaton Stannington Football Club. And I was there with my nephew, my best mate, and my son. So it's the first time I took my son to watch Heaton Stan. Kids were free. It was £8 for adults, which I thought was really good value for a playoff final. There were 2,100 people in attendance, and once Heaton Stan got their first goal, which is an absolute beauty, by the way, and if you see it on social media, I'll see if I can get that retweeted on our account. But it was a fantastic first goal, and Dean Nicholson and the coach and staff and all the volunteers and everybody connect with Heaton Stan. We just want to extend our massive congratulations for your promotion to the Northern Premier League, and it's the highest level that Heaton Stan have been at. So it's a really historic moment for the club. I believe that they're away in Benidorm celebrating. I'm sure I saw that on Twitter. So good for them. They've earned it. It was a very comfortable 3-0 win in the end. Unlike the playoff final 2 years ago, that they won in the last minute. Basically, they won 2-1 in the last minute. Only for Towlaw to end up getting promoted with them anyway, because there was a club had gone bust, I think, in the EBAC Division 1. But no, massive well done to Heaton Stan, and isn't it great to see? So Heaton Stan got promoted. Dunstan got to their playoff final, and I believe Newcastle Blue Star are playing tonight in a playoff final as well. Isn't it great to see all these big clubs, like at grassroots level, kind of playing in these huge games and getting these opportunities for promotion?
It's fantastic. I love it. I lived in Heaton for 8-9 years. My best friend was literally a street, 2 streets away, a stone's throw away, which was a blessing and a curse at times. I went to a few Heaton Stannington matches with him. And at the time, I think the crowds were maybe a couple of hundred, if that. Wasn't the greatest football being served up, but you know what? It was more the day out, the costing, the value of it. You're putting money back into non-league coffers, and you had good banter with the supporters. If the away team, I forget who they were playing now when I've been to see it, but they brought like a canny little away following, decent pint as well, if you fancy a pint and what have you. Love it. I've been to Dunstan a few times. I've been to Whitley Bay a few times, and it's always good to see. Not only we've all at times lost faith with modern day football, especially the Premier League and the greed of it, Champions League, etc. And you know what? It was nice to go to a few non-league games and just stand on the sidelines, talking to strangers and reevaluating what football's all about. Because to me, that's what it's all about: affordable football, which you've always championed, John, which we always will. And yeah, Heaton Stannington, that first goal, man, what an absolute beauty!
Yeah,
what a beauty!
I will make sure that we find that and we get that on the Twitter account, definitely. But no, I think just to touch on what you said there, Anth, about kind of grassroots football and affordable football, it levels you. So I'd messaged me mate about going because he's less of a fair weather fan than I am, because the last time I went was the last playoff final. But I'd messaged him and I said, like, I quite fancy going, and I'm as I say, I'm thinking about bringing the kids with us. And first thing he said is, make sure you bring a ball, because because it meant that Bill could have a bit of a kick around. And for those who don't know, my son, he's almost 5 years old, so obviously young lad. He's not going to be massively interested in what's going on the pitch all of the time, so we need to try and keep him distracted. So he had a great time there. There was an ice cream van there. As you say, you could get cans. There was local. There was like a street deli food, so it was, so great afternoon. And obviously the weather was decent, didn't rain, and the result was great. But it just returns you back, and the fact that, just to kind of give some context, I think their average attendance is somewhere between 600 to 1,000 on a normal match day. that there was 1,200 there for the playoff semi-final on Thursday, and then, as I say, just over 2,000 there on Saturday. On Monday even. So,
Fantastic.
some fantastic numbers, and look, and that's, as I say, all that money goes back into that club. And then, obviously divided the way it does into the league, and they've got a big task against them next year, because there are some big clubs in that league. Dunstan's in that league, I think. They're going to have to go as far as Sheffield, and I believe that Macclesfield FC, who are part owned by Robbie Savage, are also going to be in that league as well. So it's going to be a big step up for them. So they're going to have to, I imagine there'll be a little bit of an overhaul there. But obviously wish Heaton Stan the very best of luck. Right, so this is normally the part of the podcast where we preview the next fixtures for our teams. Now, Sunderland don't have a fixture for a little bit now. It's going to be 6 to 8 weeks or however long before their championship season starts again. But Newcastle have got a big game against Brighton. How do you think they're going to do, Anth?
Oh, Brighton are, last season, just fantastic. Their manager was being lauded as the next best thing, possibly going to one of the so-called bigger clubs. The following season didn't quite materialise. They've hung on to him and done ever so well to do that. The fits and starts this season, haven't they? But again, when they do turn it on and they do play as they can play to their potential, they're quite a force to be reckoned with. So it's going to be a tough one. But I think the running that years have got, and the form that years have shown, it's going to be another win. I think it's going to be another win, and I think I said it a while back that you would push, because you said about Manchester United and stuff and teams above, and I was like, well, you can catch them, and you certainly have. So yeah, I think he'll win. He says again through gritted teeth. He does.
I think so. I think so as well. And
Yeah.
I do. I think Brighton have been really off the boil this year. I think they attacked the kind of the Europa League the best they could. Got through to the knockouts, and then they've kind of tailored off from there. I think the noise around the manager hasn't helped. There was a lot of speculation about whether he was going to kind of stay there or not. As I said, he hasn't made like Ivan Toney moves about wanting to leave Brighton, but I don't think he's battered away speculation, shall we say?
Yeah.
And I think that probably has unsettled the camp a little bit, just from the outside. That's kind of my impression of it. Ironically, I've got a feeling now that he probably stays anyway. So after all of that, but it'll be a really interesting kind of time for them, because essentially now it's about how do they break into that kind of top 8 of the so-called big 6, ourselves and Villa. I think that's quite a big task now to try and break into that. Villa are clinging on by the skin of their teeth in the Conference League. They're probably going to get knocked out, I would have thought, because they've got a 2-goal deficit to overhaul against Olympiacos. But they will qualify for the Champions League this year, and thoroughly deserved for Villa, by the way, the way that Emery's kind of approached that job. But they are going to have similar problems to us, I think, in the summer in terms of what they can do in the transfer window around their financial fair play and stuff. But I think that's the challenge for Brighton. How do they kind of get themselves back into a position where they can challenge to qualify for Europe? Because I think really that is probably where they want to be as a club, is kind of a top 10, but challenging to try and get into Europe. Whereas I think really for us, we're more of we want to be a top 6 club and competing for honours. And I think we're getting closer to that. And if you think about, as I say, think about the injuries we've had, and we had 12 fit players in our squad for most of December. So if we'd say had 16 or 17 fit players in that time instead, would we be talking about 4th now, potentially, for a second year in a row? I think it shows the job the manager's done. But we're going to leave it there. So, Anth, again, thank you very much for your time. Everyone who's watched, everyone who's listened, thank you very much for taking the time to do that. If you like what you heard, or sore or both, please press the like button. Please give us a comment, give us some feedback. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like. We are likely to be doing a Sunderland season review next week, which will be an exclusive Sunderland conversation, which, as you can imagine, I'm really looking forward to.
Yes.
But I think that's the way to do it for to kind of round off the season. So we'll do that next week. And then we'll hopefully after that we'll be talking about Newcastle's qualification for Europe. Fingers crossed. But thank you very much for listening and watching, and goodbye.